Good evening, welcome. Yes, it is the T.N.F. It's the night to hand over the keys to use, although we'll have plenty to talk about ourselves. This is the first Bhoycie bus sort of reaction, if you will, to Wednesday's result. And obviously, absolute disaster. The summer's, you know, as I've said in the post that we put on Twitter, it's went from bad, this shambles of a window from bad to worse. And it's just, there's so much to chew over. There's going to be a lot of frustration on tonight's episode, but a lot of home truths as well, which is, I know, why most of you choose tune in to the channel. So a big shout out to all you who are joining us tonight a wee bit earlier at 5 o'clock. Hopefully, if you're on your way back home for work, you can get a wee bit of solace. Misery loves company, so I'm told by a wise man. Yeah, do all that good stuff before we get stuck right in. We're going to, if you're a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, hit the bell, and it means that you know when we're going to be on a wee bit earlier than normal, or if we're on a different day, things like this. Of course, go to piesports.com and you can still use that code BUS1888 and get a tasty pastries treat at the checkout. Obviously, as well, there is the option to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like so many have. It's $1.99 a month, but like to long-term members like Alex Forsyth, Joe Henry, Ryan, P. McLaughlin are all in the house. And a big thanks for all that. It does help keep the wheels on the road. And we appreciate you all sticking with us for as long as you have. Mark, how are you? Did I ask?
Fucking shite, to be quite honest with you, mate. How are you?
Mate, it's now this would be ironic if I was to say apathy, considering the debates in the back and forth me and you have had over apathy in Europe. But I've got to say, I felt with Wednesday there was an inevitability about the result that was going to arise. I was doing I did a show on Monday on the Trinity Tims. The Trinity Tims is the sort of guys who do the snack media, like James Forrest, Joe McHugh, Eric was the other lad that was on. They're all sort of got their own sites. They predominantly blog, but they now do podcasts. They were kind enough to ask me on. And of course, Mark, at the end of the show, there was a predictions round. My prediction, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but I said I expect extra time, and I'm hopeful Celtic will get through in that, but I cannot see us getting the job done in the 90 minutes. We didn't do that. We carried on extra time, slightly more aggressive, but I mean, we're talking about, like, in terms of aggression points, we were about at 1 out of 10 over the two legs. So, you know, in terms of intent and purpose and forward thinking on the ball, we maybe went up to about a 3 out of 10 in extra time, I would say. Do you know what I mean? It was the only way was up by that point, but it wasn't enough. I'm going to open with a statement that will piss people off. I see a lot of glee and a lot of joy at Rangers' result last night. That's fine. And if that's how you comfort yourself at night, because Rangers are consistently rubbish, I think that's what the board want. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's where they are. They consistently look over their shoulders. If Rangers are doing well, they'll do a bit more. If Rangers are doing shite, they pat themselves on the back, like somehow it's correlated with what they do at Celtic. I'll be honest, I think our result in the Champions League qualifier playoff round is more embarrassing than Rangers' 9-1 aggregate defeat to Club Brugge. I think going out to a side 200-odd ranking places below you, we've never been in the Champions League before, we're the only club in the playoff round that had spent less than us. We couldn't have asked for any more. And as far as I'm concerned, our exit to a side for Kazakhstan, Kairat Almaty, is more of an embarrassment than getting pumped off a club that knows how to act like a big club when the chances arise, and have now qualified for the Champions League for the 5th time in the last 6 years, and consistently have a player trading model where they might sell players, but boy, oh boy, do they invest that money quickly to ensure they get back to Europe's top table if there are qualifiers required. And that's what you've seen with that Club Brugge side, a side that was littered with £6 million players, £9 million players. The bracket we're told Celtic look at, but can't acquire anyone from until the qualifiers are done. A bracket that Celtic won't sign anyone from because they didn't qualify for the Champions League anyway. And I think Club Brugge make a mockery of everyone who wants to look at Celtic right now as a club that are run brilliantly, best run club in Europe. I look at a team like Brugge and I think, wow, that's what we should be aspiring to. That's one that has the TV pitfalls that Celtic have that aren't great financially. But no, when they start going up the ladder, they know how to maintain it and they know how to try and go up to the next rung. And they've showed very quickly in a period of under a decade, once they've had opportunities, they've grabbed them, they've ran with them, and they've maximised them. Celtic have had opportunities at Champions League level this whole century. Since 2000, 2001, we've had Champions League opportunities in front of us. Champions League opportunities, whether it be winning the league or whether it requiring qualifiers, and occasion it's been automatic group stage football. Celtic have never maximised the opportunities they've had, and they've had far more of a run at it than a club like Club Brugge have. The team that we played against have never had the opportunity. They've never been in the competition before. They don't play in a league of prestige. They don't play with quality players in the lineup like we still have, by the way, and we can get on to the management fault on this. But what we did see was Rangers got beat off a team and humped off a team that treats getting into the Champions League with respect. And what we've seen was Celtic whimper out of qualifiers against a team that we did not respect. And yet again, it doesn't matter the name of the club. When it comes to the Champions League, Celtic don't show any respect. We got what we deserve. And as far as I'm concerned, the most embarrassing European result out of all the Scottish clubs so far is firmly ours.
Was that a question?
Mark, I know you'll have plenty to say. I know.
No, get off your chest, mate. Mate. Listen, I agree with you, because I thought last night I seen some people on Twitter. By all means, laugh at the Huns. That's what we're supposed to do. That's our jobs as Celtic fans. But I don't take any solace with that, mate. I just think that the board want us, and I said the same thing on Twitter last night. That's the board reaction to be, oh, well, as long as if they're bad, it doesn't matter how bad we are, as long as we're not as shit as them, And I think we've seen that play out last night. I was hoping they would get the 10, but that might have sacked him, so maybe it saved his job for a couple of weeks more. I think they're already due to sack that guy, unfortunately. But no, so I don't think there's anybody with any sense in their head that thinks that the situation Rangers are in makes ours feel any better. I feel like for us to get beat off a team like that, over 2 legs, Rogers came out after the first leg, he's like, oh, do you know what? We've played the tough tie now. We know what this team's like. We know what it's all about. You had Callum McGregor, Captain Invisible, I call him, coming out and saying, we need to go to the away leg now and win. That's no bother. Just totally disrespecting that team. We went over there, we played 104 minutes at Celtic Park and 235 minutes at their ground, plus 5 penalties, and we scored two penalty kicks. But all of that time, that's what we managed to do. And I think Celtic totally showed themselves up for how bad they are set up behind the scenes. I think we began to see cracks within the actual management of the squad as well. I think we began to see cracks with our captain, our goalkeeper, and there's so many cracks in the forward line that it's obvious to everybody else except the board that this team needs ripped apart sooner the better.
It's definitely, we can do this in segments if you like. Let's look at the bold point of view first. That seems to be our specialised subject on the T.N.F. Martin has been for a long time. And sometimes people wake up slower than others. Sometimes I think even there'll be those who think they're angry right now. We get a win at Ibrox Sunday and Celtic will sign a couple of players they could have got in, by the way, for the qualifiers. And everyone will be hunky-dory again. They'll take their eyes back off the board just as fast. that's frustrating in one aspect. But all you can do is speak your own truth. Now, I mean, Paw Patrol's going to be busy in the chat. And Paw Patrol, just you keep paying the buses rent, mate, because it's important that our subscription fees are met. So it's great that you jump on. Hope you've watched plenty of ads. And thank you for joining, as always, mate.
Come on, what a stupid comment. There's cracks in the stadium, literally. There's cracks between the board and the manager's relationship. There's cracks between the manager's style of play. There's cracks within the squad itself. And there's cracks on the park. Unless I've woke up in some sort of sweaty dream and dreamt all this stuff, am I the only person that's thinking this way, or is Paw Patrol, which is a Wayne's cartoon, I think, has he got a point?
It's bizarre, but he's got his wee agenda. He comes on every now and then. He came on last week with a wee one-liner as well. He's good at it. He says, remember, I think he was on, he said I was aggressive at times on here. A fake anger I showed for clout. Not that he could define what the clout was that apparently I was after. Clearly doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. But it's good to see that. That's a good thing. I think there'll be those like Paw Patrol who will want to lay all the blame at the manager, probably don't want to hear home truth. So that's fine. And there'll be some others in the chat that I think we'll have good back and forth with as the show goes on. And we're always up for that on the bus. And we take everyone's opinion if they're actually serious about it and aren't here just to be a bunch of bams. Then we'll always bring it up on the channel and discuss it. But if we go through things a sort of segment by segment, we'll focus on the board first. The board have now achieved 5 qualifying campaigns in a row, Mark. I'm going to guess, right, that's some sort of British record. It won't be a European record, as there'll be other clubs that have not ever qualified, maybe. But the way I see it is when it comes down to getting things wrong time and time again, and it comes to why are you meant to have faith in a strategy, as it's called, when the strategy fails itself? The strategy is whether it be Postecoglou losing against Midtjylland, whether it be then before that Rodgers against AEK, whether it be Lenny, in fact, in between that, Lenny was before Ange, Lenny losing to Cluj. It's quite, if you remember that game, Callum McGregor played left back. We have Liam Scales now playing left back. Rodgers actually qualified us playing O'Connell at centre back. We've seen Dane Murray feature, I think, against Midtjylland all those years ago, and now he seems to be getting integrated into the first team. It doesn't matter the manager. The leopard never changes its spots. They don't treat the competition with respect, and they don't, and this is very important, Mark, they don't treat their own failings with any respect or attention either. They don't recognise what they get wrong and try and fix it and do something differently the next opportunity that arises. And I think when you now look at, I mean, they talk it right now, we're going, anyone in a position of power who cost the club 40 million would be getting their jotters or would be getting a review, etc. I always go, I think to myself, this, Matt, which 40 million are you talking about? The other debate, of course, when it comes to this board is one that we've been advocating on the bus a long time as well. And that is, undeniably, the guys that are on that board, they played musical chairs with the job titles. Simple as that. And Peter Lawwell, in a room where he was CEO for 17 years, then having the cherry picking of then those who got job titles, including Nicholson, they are going to be influenced by him. And the strategy, guys, just use your eyes, is the exact same as it was under Lawwell. It is a Lawwell production, whether you like it or not, in some way, shape or form, because they don't want fresh eyes in there. Don Mackay lasted 3 months for a reason. Even his own son became the fall guy pretty quickly and only lasted 12 months. That is a group that right now have tunnel vision on how they think Celtic should be run, and yet the unbelievable failings and the unbelievable cost to Celtic, both in profile, in money, and see, to me, the most important thing that everyone seems to miss now is the product on the park. Watching a great Celtic team competing in Europe, no one expects us to win the Champions League. I want to see Celtic get results, mate, that shock you, though. I want to see Celtic go, fucking hell, What that run we're on. We've just won 2 games away from home in a row in the Champions League group. Imagine something like that. 2 away wins in a row. That's what I'm asking for. We're in the mix. We got to the last 16. We were right in the mix for the last 8. I want these conversations to happen. And that bit seems to be the least priority almost on everyone's lips. Everyone seems to be looking at the other aspects, but they're getting those wrong too. Mark, this board has an expiry date that was fucking older than the milk in my fridge right now. They are long gone. Long gone in terms of what it is that's required in 2025 to keep Celtic on the front foot. And do you know what I would love to see Celtic do? Punching above their weight, aspiring to punch above their weight. Right now, whatever Celtic weight is getting slimmer and slimmer thanks to those that are running the club.
Totally agree, mate. And unfortunately, the people on the board are no representing the fans, they're representing the shareholders. So the next AGM, the people who are representing the people in the room, they're going to vote them back in, Bhoycie, because if that's a financial decision for you, the board's going to probably make you money. And we've already seen that the home games at Celtic Park now. All right, me writing on Twitter and you writing on Twitter and sitting this podcast and airing our truths about Celtic, Bhoycie. But I'm going to surprise you here, mate. We're in the vast minority when it comes to the actual physical support in the stadium. I was at the game last week and there was folk singing "Sack the Board," and it was in the hundreds, it wasn't even in the thousands. And there was booing and hissing and get out the stadium chants, people went about me. And I actually approached somebody on my rotis to discuss it at half time, actually. And that's what you're up against, Bhoycie. You're always going to have that element of folk who don't want to see the woods for the trees, you know what I mean? Or who won't see the woods for the trees. And you've got somebody on the chat now. I'm not going to say his name. It's beneath me to say a stupid name like that, to be honest with you. But all that aside, there could be no denying that the fact that we're hundreds of millions of pounds worse off with decisions made by this board. We've spent days trying to replace Kyogo, and in the midst of that, we woke up this morning, or even last night rather, and we've been surprised with a bid for our only striker we've got that's getting games, and they're considering selling him as well. I have no faith that they'll go out and get the right man, but it all stems down to how the board operate, Bhoycie. We were 150, 160 days without a manager when we sacked Neil Lennon. We then spent months and months letting Eddie Howe string us along, and then we luckily landed at Ange Postecoglou's door. The biggest lottery ticket you can get for us. At the time, he was a man that could build a team, and he did it well, Bhoycie. Whether there's a lot of flaws to his game, but he built a good team up against a good Rangers team at the time. And then again, we've got Rodgers back for the second time out of 4 managers. Two managers out of the last 3 have been there twice. This isn't a club that progresses and starts to make joined up thinking. This isn't a club that sees gaps within the squad and fixes them. This isn't a board that listens to the managers, please. Listen to the captains, please. Listens to the fans, please. This is a board that get people kicked out of AGMs when they ask the wrong questions. This is a board who put barriers up within the stadium at Celtic Park, fleece the fans for pies, merchandise and tickets as much as possible, allow the police to harass them. And this is a board that looked in their nose at the Celtic fans, asking us to pay our money, shut our mouth and get on with it. Too many folk now have had enough, Bhoycie. The only thing we can do now to combat the board is not even with our feet anymore, Bhoycie. This is 1994 anymore. We've already bought the tickets. We've already bought in. We've paid for it into the raffle. The only thing we can do now is hit it where it hurts when it comes to Europa League packages and the home cup ticket scheme. Now that's my plan for it. The home cup ticket scheme is a scheme for everybody that's watching that's not entirely sure. It's a scheme where anybody on the season ticket fan base, they have to buy into this scheme. It's a direct debit where the Celtic board, the club, take direct debit out of your bank for home matches, for cups, including Champions League, Europa League, and home matches for the 2 cup games. And what that does, that buys you a raffle ticket for the Hampden games and a ballot. But even that now, Boise has been diluted because we've found out in the last couple of games now that about 4,000 or 5,000 of the tickets are getting handed to hospitality. So that raffle ticket you've got is basically getting worth less and less, Boise. So this is a board that's given us less and expecting more in return. 1.3 million pounds. 1.3 million pound for Marco Tillio, Boise. That's a lottery win. Who's paying that? 17 million pound for Kuhn. I think that's a lottery win as well. And 5 million pound for a guy we sold 5 years ago, Frimpong. All that plus the 9-10 players has been put off the wage bill. And we are still lowballing teams for players that are asking for 3-4 million pound. If that's not anything that opens up people's eyes and takes their fingers out their ears, Boise, then I'm lost for words, mate. I really are.
It's amazing to think that when you're conditioned like the Celtic board have done so many, that even in that time, when you're conditioned to think Celtic's glass ceiling is Champions League qualification in general, right? But then, of course, and by the way, with a big nod to your rivals, whether you like it or not, their ranking compared to ours tells you your story in Europe. But through coefficient points, they helped massively us have our guaranteed group stage football the last 3 years. That became a fucking problem to Celtic because there was. That is when this summer, when it did go back, because we also, by the way, never performed well enough in 2 out of those 3 group stage competitions, the group stage years that we were in. This summer was always going to come down the pipeline when the coefficient for Scottish title wins just dropped off that little bit and qualifiers were required again. Because suddenly they had the benefit. They had the money in the bank. They had it on black and white. They had it in public record accounts. Those 3 years banked. Those record after record transfer fee sales from Tierney to Jota to O'Reilly. By the way, sprinkled in between that, your Edwards, your Ayers, your Kyogos, your Nicholas Kuhn, your Leo Labadas, your Giacomakis, all these fees, raining in Frimpong. All this summer meant was exposure because, right, the theory's now got to be changed. It's got to be adapted because we've never been in this situation before. We're going for 4 years in a row, group stage football. First Scottish club it would be to do so. And we know by going for the 4th year, that means you've got 3 years of proper high turnover, proper high revenue streams. So what it's going to take is, because we've got to go a wee bit extra, we've got to dig a wee bit deeper this time to get that group stage football. Now, whether you want it or not, is going to be under the magnifying glass. It's going to be exposed one way or the other. Whether you're all in, a tagline that frustrated the life out of me when it came to the Celtic season ticket sales last summer, if you remember. We are all in. So they went for world class in 2023. We're all in 2024. Use their own words against them. You get what you pay for. It's their rhetoric to describe themselves. What about the team? Is that world class in everything it aspires to do? Is the recruitment world class in everything it aspires to do? Has the attitude towards the Champions League started to become world class in everything it does? Has it hell? But it's the fan who's expected to be world class in everything that they do. And that's danced to our tune every way possible. Whether that be pay your season book, there's 2 weeks' notice, and it's got to be done by then or you're going to lose it. I know you've had it for 20 years, but get it in right now, will you? Whether it becomes 4th kits, and we're always going to play on our Irish heritage every second year with that as well, and really pull at the heartstrings. Get the kids to put them under pressure. Celtic are world class at Christmas adverts. That's where they're world class at. Those adverts are brilliant. That's the only thing I see that Celtic do with a wee bit of foresight, a wee bit of imagination, and to me, for any football club, the way they do it, involving both sets of women's teams and adult men's team, with the management get involved, they can take the mick of themselves. That's world class. That I mean, that customer drive that they do to sell even more merch at Christmas because they weren't quite satisfied with the record shirt sales they were doing in the summer. Nothing else Celtic does is world class. But here we are in a position where you have, in effect, a dictatorship because the majority shareholder backs these guys because he looks at the profit sheet. The majority shareholder has at times spoken about Celtic fans not being real fans, those who question anything. So he's now got his back up. And in his mind, if we pitch ideas, he'll instantly reject them because his mind's gone there that they don't know what they're talking about. They're questioning me. I've done so much for this club. If you think we've had an open run to the Champions League and failed at that, wait to hear about the open run we've had domestically that you'll wad over. It's incredible. The self-congrat. You couldn't even get 10 in a row. You couldn't get 10 in a row. And I'm sorry. I look at what we've been up against in that time. It's unacceptable. Again, that was, especially when it was on a plate. We've got so many things wrong in this time. And yet I feel the praise and the loving that this board get and the stupid, made up, by the way, titles of best run club in Europe. According to who? And based on what metric? All this nonsense is lapped up by them, and even Rangers' demises, I think they praise themselves for and pat each other in the back and reassure themselves. Come the end of the year, the domestic bliss brigade will be out in force. If they're singing for a double or a treble, all will be forgotten. Now, they don't ever build from a position of strength, but what we're now going to see is Celtic getting active perhaps in the transfer market, just by default again, by the way. This is again, and history will be rewritten. See, if we sign 4 or 5 players, history will be rewritten by January. Every time there's a bad result, Brendan got backed in the summer. The same way they say Ange got back in that window was unbelievable. It was so fresh. Ange Postecoglou had to come out and say, I'm not being forceful enough with my message, obviously. The message isn't clear enough. I'm not getting it through. That was his first window in the door. And we signed 3 players at midnight on deadline day.
Aye.
That window is now rehashed. That window is rehashed into the refreshing new Celtic window, and Lowell wasn't there. Was it fuck? We had about 12 players in the door when Ange came in, and it took us to deadline day midnight for us to do that. It is an incredible disregard people have to the board's failings and missed opportunities, and what they're not realising is you're conditioned to think you've seen the best version of Celtic in this time because there's been a few domestic trebles lifted against the worst era of Rangers, either entity, whatever way you want to describe it, you've ever could imagine. An absolute basket case of a club. We've been better than, and you think that's because there's a genius formula plan that they've been providing and time and again getting right. It's bollocks, and they've been up against the challenge. Trust me, they fail, and they fail badly. And they do not learn from the mistakes, and they think they're too good to listen to you.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the main monster they created is the money monster that's in the bank, you know. The Champions League qualifications automatically created this massive pile of cash that's suddenly focused on what Celtic have got to what they're spending. And all of a sudden there was a focus on, right, we can actually build here and strengthen. And what we found out is the Celtic board don't deviate for their strategy, no matter the incomings or the outgoings, Bhoycie. The money in the bank, I think, is about a hindrance to them. Their own greed has created this tunnel vision that the Celtic fans have got to be better. If this was just a club that was just getting by each year, making a bit of profit and just rehashing it into the club again, they would have less pressure to spend money. They don't want pressure to spend money, Bhoycie, because they don't want us to be checking what's going on behind the scenes. And I think it's been created artificially by, I think, Rangers giving us 3 qualifications in a row, selling players on the back of playing Champions League football, merchandise through Adidas, who are watching a club that's in the Champions League, so elevating the kit deals we get, blah, 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 blah. It all stems through the Champions League, basically. And then the fans are obviously buying Champions League packages and they're buying into the full we're all in strategy mantra that Celtic put. I think we've only realised that we're going nowhere with this board. But we're not. But the board's going nowhere either, boys. I've said before, the only way we're going to get rid of this board is when you leave the club feet first. And I'm not trying to say I want it to happen tomorrow, although I do want it to happen tomorrow. I think the sooner Father Time takes care of a few of the people, the better. And I'm not being harsh. I would say it to their faces. I'm fed up with them. And to be quite honest with you, this is the thing. Like, you know, we sell Celtic to new players, and we brand it a lot to the full planet as how emotional and how attached the fans are. But the same board are fucking up in arms and outraged when this emotion that's within me and you comes to the surface, and we start getting angry when people are playing with their emotions, playing with a football club. I mean, I was talking the other day there to the guys in my row. No, it was the last home game. I said, look, this is my last season. I've had enough yet. And a few of them were saying the exact same thing. And I was sitting as watching the game, and I went, how dare they take that away from us? You know what I mean? How dare that board take away what we've got in Celtic? I mean, they're taking away our passion, do you know what I mean? And they're taking away, like you mentioned, apathy. I was kind of apathetic myself. You know, I'm looking at a bigger picture with Celtic. We need the Champions League if we want to build a squad and then be in a situation in 3-4 years' time where we have still got enough money to buy players at 4-5 million. That was my full philosophy when Celtic in Europe this season. I don't care if they get beat 9-0, Bhoycie. I don't like the European football. We're not good enough for European football, and we shouldn't be there. We're just not at that level. And I think we're going to be found out in the Europa League and all, to be quite honest with you. But
that's a worry.
That's a
big worry.
But it's true though, Bhoycie. I mean, Europa League, Bhoycie, come on. Who's getting off their couch to watch that? I mean, come on, fuck.
The bigger worry is how we perform in it.
I tell you, the worry for me is I looked at the pot one teams, excluding Rangers, who I think, by the way, could take care of Celtic as well, actually. And it was teams that would absolutely murder Celtic. They would murder us. This current Celtic team with a goalkeeper that looks 3 stone overweight that can't be dropped, a left back who is so unfit that he can't finish a game of football by the end of August, and then creating 2 problems, which means we're going to have to keep Scales on to put him on left back, and then it's a waste of a sub. We've got a strike force who can't score goals, a midfield who have not got a clue what the fuck's going on, and a defence that's kind of looks great on paper, but the minute you poke at it, there's holes all over the place. We're a shambles of a football team, the boys say. We've got away with it. We've played Falkirk, St Mirren and Livingston at home, and an Aberdeen team who, up until we played them, had played 3 friendly matches all pre-season and 1 league game. That's not preparing yourself. So Celtic have been lucky. If we'd been to Tynecastle and Easter Road by now, we'd have dropped probably 4 points, if not 6 points. Let's be brutally honest. We're in a bit of a state ourselves just now. You know what I mean? And there's clubs in that Europa League that would absolutely fucking murder Celtic. I've seen Muppets online saying Celtic will go for a run in Europe. We'll get to the quarters. It'll be exciting. Celtic won't even get out of that fucking group stage, Bhoycie, that league phase.
The draw is tomorrow.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. I will not even.
It won't be a group stage, will it? Europa League will be the same.
I'll be watching that, Bhoycie. Fuck. I don't even. The imagination, the Celtic fans are turned off the Europa League a long, long time ago. We don't see it as a serious competition. But what makes it even worse is you've got a fan base who are new, acclimatised to the Champions League, and a fan base that are totally up in arms about the utter mess the team's in because of the board. And the reason why we're in the Europa League is because we've been kicked out of another competition. And by the way, I'm all for fairness. I think the champions of Scotland should be in the Champions League, right? Automatically. So, seeing the same breath, I think if you get knocked out of the Champions League, you should be out of Europe altogether. So I'm going to be consistent with that. I can't be calling for the big teams in England who are wanting 5-6 Champions League places.
7 this year.
7. Well, I think that's ridiculous, Bhoycie, right? But I can't turn around and say that's ridiculous. But expect Celtic to get put out put it one European competition, and then dip down into another one without playing a qualifier. I don't think it's right. I think if you get put out, you should put it all together. And that's what they both deserve. And by the way, just something, I'm going to say this, because this is a very much forgotten about fact. A lot of your support, a vast maybe 25%, sorry, of your support come from England and Ireland, who need Saturday kickoffs to be able to go as many matches as possible. Now we've got another 8 games now that are going to be on a Sunday. They don't need to lose a quarter of the season. That's a quarter of the season these guys probably can't get to, so we can facilitate playing teams for fucking Romania on a Thursday night in the Europa Cup. I don't think it's what Celtic want to be. And it's no effing I'm even going to open my eyes for Bhoycie. I think it's a lot of shite.
I get you, mate. I do get you with that as well. I think it'd be remiss to carry on with the board. Although I just want to say one thing. I mean, if it was dropping out altogether, at least that would have removed the budget for Europa League narrative. That'd been quite handy. That'd been quite handy.
Just fair. I just think that
they wouldn't be able to do that, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can't budget for Europa League if you can't make it in there. It's only a Champions League qualifier you've got.
As his fans, Bhoycie, me and you probably sat on the phone each other, and we've sat in this pod at some point and said, we're the champions, we should qualify straight away. So we can't be two-faced and go like that. Well, do you know what? Okay, we get knocked out of that, so we'll just jump into this one instead. There's teams that have finished second in really tough leagues that are kind of comparable with Scotland, that are fighting each other, who'd probably knocked out Europa League just now on qualifiers. They deserve that space. We don't deserve it, but we've got it. And I don't think the club deserve it. By the way, I seen that a breakdown. We've lost something like £20 million, all told. Through I know it's £40 million people are saying, but it's 20 million we've lost. If all the figures for last year are the same as this year. So right now we've sold Kuhn and Frimpong, etc. So we're still about £1 million, £2 million in profit just on that shit alone. But where's all the Champions League? Where's all the season ticket money, the kit sale money, and last year's profit? That's time to get that spent, Bhoycie, because Lowell said years ago, Celtic budget for the Europa League, if they get the Champions League, it's a bonus. So Celtic surely can't be any worse off than what they budgeted for, because they've got what they asked for.
Yeah, that's the best bit though, mate. See, with that even being a strategy all those years ago, how come it doesn't adapt? How come it doesn't evolve when you get in 3 years in a row? That's a frustrating thing. But anyway, one last thing. Gary McDowell comes in. Great to have you on the bus, Gary. All that chat about running the club like Brugge is nonsense. They have an incredible youth system. Why don't we, Gary? Which produces, and we can't keep out top young talent. Keep our top young talent. I think you've meant to say a typo. Well, we should be able to keep our young top talent. We should. There's no reason if Brugge can keep theirs, like you're saying, that Celtic can't. Unless you've got, you can, give me some insight. And the basis that I am saying, running it like Brugge, it's very simple. So I think Celtic's the only club I know of where its own fans, let alone like in the media, like Boyd with Sutton at the weekend, who talk about the last summer's window at the end of this summer's window. We're the only club, and that tells you know what that is. That tells you subconsciously everyone is astounded Celtic spent £9 million, £11 million on a player, because see, football is all about the here and the now. You never hear Man United who they should target this summer and go, well, he did sign that guy last summer. They did spend this, that. No one talks like that. No. But because Celtic spent what seems to be extraordinary fees because they never do it, that seems to now get used as a stick to beat someone with. I mean, the player sales alone since they're dwarfs what we spent last summer. Let's have it right. Yeah, the player trading revenues of Kyogo, Kuhn, and the Frimpong money are either equal or equate to what we brought in last summer. Let alone that Matt O'Reilly was obviously before. So if you're looking at even since that window, so if we're going back to the last window, I'm saying even what we spent there, if you're going to use it as a stick, we've recouped all that already. So firstly, that's baffling to me. And yet it's used by Celtic's own fans and it's used in the media. We're the only club that you look at a year ago's window as a reason not to spend this window. It's bizarre. But here we are. I think that highlights as well, by the way, just how rare it is we even spend in a window. That's why it's used as a stick, because subconsciously everyone's actually going, they spent money then, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. But what the reason is, Gary, I'm trying to say about running like Brugge is, you'll love this, because Brugge actually sold 81 million euros of talent. 81 million euros of talent this summer. They spent 36.
Hi.
That's nearly 50% of their revenue.
That's what you call
flipping it. That's of course it is, mate. Of course it is. Last summer, I think they'd sold 24 million and they'd spent something like 30. Or they spent 24 and sold 30. Something like that. But let's say this summer, that's nearly 50% on the player trading model. And what you notice from their spending as it goes up, I bet you know in it at Brugge right now, or the reports on Brugge are going, but what about the €6 million defender who was on the bench against Celtic that they paid for last summer in 2024? Does that not prove the model doesn't work? No, it proves that the squad's getting stronger if they've got 6 million players from last summer on the bench. That's what it should show, right? Also, what it tells me is, as they're bringing in more in revenue, they're going up through the brackets in terms of what they're willing to spend per player, and maybe per squad player, shall we say. We still think 6 million should be like top-class Celtic players straight in at the starting 11. 6 million is what they pay in the third tier of English football now for a player. Third tier. Listen to what I'm saying. Then you get the example when it comes to a player trading that's really frustrating is Celtic's regressed within it and decided to, I think, again, when I say the tunnel vision and the one-trick pony stuff, Celtic are failing to get players in that potentially have European qualifiers ahead of them, because those in that bracket, we might need to see how it pans out. What they actually mean by that is their club, because they've got playoff qualifiers coming up, want a couple of quid extra if they're going to part company. See Celtic's selling record before Champions League qualifiers if you want a club that sells for a wee bit more before. So it does exist. And then I look at Brugge's recruitment, Gary. I mean, you say that it's all this chat about running Brugge's nonsense. I've got to push back again on this, that when we are told the reason it's so difficult for Celtic right now is because these clubs want to hold on to their players to see how their European fate plays out. That's the 69 million bracket. How come Club Brugge signed so many in that bracket before their qualifier, which turned into Rangers? How come they've done 36 million to spend on 5 players? It was 36 million on 6 players, I think it was. Was that an average of 6 million a player? Might even have been 7. Let's say the average was 5 million quid a player. 7 players in, 5 million per head, all done before the playoffs. Here we go. Qualifications made, 40 million in the bank, all done, dusted, paid for. That's all achievable for Celtic. That's why I want to start like a club like Brugge. Any thoughts on that, Matt?
No, you're spot on, mate. And I think the board love guys like Gary, who probably champion the guys at 1 million, £2 million, and probably tell the board that they're doing a good job and patting them in the back the way past when they go to their fancy directors' boxes. I'm no like that, boys. I find that Celtic are getting held back by this board, you know what I mean? And clubs like Bruges, it's a Belgian league. It's not as if it's Holland or Italy. It's a league that we can compete with. We can offer the same. In fact, we can offer them more money, wages than what Bruges can. They just choose to speculate to accumulate. You said they spent £56 million. They'll probably get through to the last 16. They'll probably make 50, 60 million pounds. So they make it back. Plus, they've still got the assets to sell. So, and they've made their team better. It's 1-1-1. But Celtic just don't want to even look at that. They'll no budge in their strategy. They'll no look at changing their ways at all. They don't react, and they're not proactive. They're just a balling club set up, Bhoycie, you know what I mean? And I think it's embarrassing we've got anybody in their support thinking that Bruges is a step too far for Celtic to try and emulate. I mean, Bruges, come on, we could probably get more people at a reserve match than you could get for a Champions League final, Bhoycie. if the situation was correct. Do you know what I mean? We're a far bigger club than even the 5 teams that's put us out. I mean, then you include Legia Warsaw and that, and all. These Celtic are dwarfing these clubs tenfold, you know what I mean? But we're getting told that they can't gamble. We're not. Yes, you're right, we can't gamble because the gamble is not to buy players. The gamble is not to respect the competition. The gamble is not to give the fans at least a glimmer of hope going into qualifiers against a team from Kazakhstan. I mean, I told you, I told my dad we wouldn't want any of the ties. Can you imagine telling that to somebody that Celtic Football Club couldn't beat a team from Kazakhstan, who up until that game there, their full sum total of European football is when they get 2 points in the Conference League 3 years ago. You tell me Celtic can't ensure themselves to get through that tie? I think the tie itself, the mess of the board is totally masking what Brendan Rodgers and the players did. You know what I mean? I think the captain's got away with murder. I think the captain needs...
Well, that was going to be the next talking point, Mark.
The captain needs out that first 11. And the fact that it's impossible to even think that says more about the actual state of the squad than any words I can tell you.
Mark, it's easy for us to, as I say, our specialised subject will be all things, Celtic PLC, I think, just because we can see so many chinks in that armour. And I think at times we felt up against it with some of our fellow Celtic fans that some are passionate trying to push across to try and convince others of the failings that we think are abundantly clear. But I've been, you could say, a Rodgers apologist, if you want to call it that. I've just been a bit of a Rodgers cheerleader, to be honest with you, because I think he is the best manager we could possibly have got. I think his track record at Celtic of 5 seasons, 5 league titles, one set up with 8 games to go with a 7-point lead, I think he had, 5-point lead or something when he left. 5 or 7 points lead when he'd left mid-season. I think he'd already won a League Cup by then.
Yeah,
and he'd got us. We were in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. Albeit Lenny deserves a hell of a lot of credit for guiding both those through. But if you look at if you take those away, then it's 5 out of 5 leagues. Was it 3 out of 5 Scottish Cups, and 4 out of 5 League Cups?
Oh, it's a phenomenal record.
Now, I have never heard of a manager get so quickly, sort of slated for that sort of ratio, and I think it's pretty unheard of at Celtic someone to have that ratio. However, when it comes to that tie, did he have enough quality to not deal with the Kazakhstan outfit, Kairat Almaty? Kalmati, I nearly called him. That's Kalmati.
I'm going to blame you. The guys in my life, to be honest with you.
There's got to be a huge look in the mirror of, I think you've got the fans on board, mate, with a lot of your views, Brendan, on the recruitment drive. I think a lot of fans agree that the spending hasn't been enough and we've lost a lot of quality. But I think, Brendan, there's a lot of fans as well who are beginning to wonder if your tactics, your way you set up your team, and the style of football right now, come season 3, may just be a trend in your managerial career that you can't quite shake. And that is that you'll maybe see it peak season 2. I know he had the invincible season with Celtic season 1. Season 2 was still, really entertaining, that particularly the first half of that season. I just wonder if, you look at Leicester, his first 2 seasons there, 5th place twice, FA Cup, Charity Shield against City win, and then, it started just, and I know there was asset stripping there as well, by the way, which people forget. Season 3 at Celtic, first time round, football was getting a bit turgid. I know, again, and I stand by it, there was board issues there massively with the recruitment drive, very similar to this summer, but the football's dropping off as well. And when something's not working, you've got to do something to change it. Now, when we clearly we're not creating anything like enough chances. Mark, you hit the nail on the head when you gave the amount of minutes, the amount of goals, and over the two legs. We don't even see a slight tweak to the formation. We don't see a Celtic team desperate to get to that Champions League by going, do you know what? Let's put Yamada, Kenny right up top like an old-fashioned partnership. Let's maybe try and go a wee bit more direct if that's the answer. That's me just coming up with things, by the way. I'm not a football tactician. What I'm trying to say is, in general, did we see us trying to do anything fucking differently in extra time? Did we see anything that was trying to do anything differently in the second leg for the first leg? For the second half in the first leg to the first half of the first leg? From the second half in the second leg? No. We've seen the same thing throughout, and that lack of mix-up, that lack of willing to change, that lack of willing to be more ruthlessly aggressive in terms of going out to achieve the result, I think reeked for the team. Yes, there's a nervousness about all of Celtic right now, from stands to management, which feeds onto the players. But this is where I go back to what I said last week. When you try to say everything to everyone and you're trying to not be too sort of harsh on the board, even though you quite clearly feel raging, and you try to keep the fans on side this time by not giving any quips that could anger anyone if you were to leave, and you're trying to keep everyone on. That nervous energy is transferring to the players regardless. So sometimes it's better to tie your flag to the mast and let the players know, I'll defend you. I know you need help. I'm doing everything I can, both behind the scenes and publicly. But from what you hear, I'm on message. I want to get you support. Instead, the players feel sorry for themselves because every question at the manager is about recruitment and the lack of recruitment, and it's casting doubt over a team that probably thinks it's not as good as what it actually can be on its day. But I have to be honest, I thought it was uninspiring, both legs of football, and the thing that gets me the most, Mark, is there was no recognition of that mid-game. Now, we've spoke about Rodgers tactically being quite astute at navigating different situations as he comes across them mid-game. We always go back to the 3-2 at Ibrox, the notepad, even though we went down to 10 men, and he had a solution for it. I never seen a solution, Mark, at any point to what was becoming Groundhog Day every 5 minutes of football that was played.
I totally agree with you, mate. That, I mean, it was Groundhog Day, and it was the horseshoe of death, I think they call it. And also the first leg, you know what I mean? I think it was crying out for somebody that runs at defence. And we've only got one player like that, and that is Luke McKibben, who did make a difference in extra time. And I know he must have penalty, boys, say we can get into that if you want, but he's direct, and that team were thriving on the fact that Celtic were just passing the ball about them, giving these teams chances to compose themselves, get back into their shape. Nobody was direct. Maybe a target man and a striker next to him would have at least gave that team questions, at least. You know what I mean? But it was subs for the sake of making subs sometimes. I thought the idea that Dyson Maeda was going to be superb through the middle, I think we all knew he was going to be, boys. We all knew that. We look at his one-on-one in the first leg. He just hit that ball. He the full goal aim it. He just hit the ball right to the keeper. It was a terrible finish. You score that, you win 1-0. You get to that place, you win another 2 or 3-0. He cost us as much as one player can cost you. Might have cost us the two legs, but I think it's so much more than that, Bhoycie. So much more than that. I think the full team was playing within themselves. Question marks probably over their own position. Question marks whether they fit into his system. I think there's probably question marks within the fan base. Whether folk like Maeda and Hatate have probably passed their sell-by date, and there's probably questions in my mind that there's guys like, in my opinion, there's guys like Carter Vickers and Dyson Maeda and Carl McGregor who we should be trying to kind of maybe move on, you know what I mean, and try and build again, Bhoycie, because I'm seeing a lot of staleness in that Celtic team just now. There's no freshness, and I thought what made Celtic so powerful last year was we had that core of players that's been there for a few years. But sometimes that core of players that's been there for a few years can become the problem because it becomes stale eventually. And
you see that across the city, don't you?
Yeah, and
I don't mean that as a pop. I think that's
no. I think the Rangers' problem for me is I don't think their signings are as bad as what they've been. I think they're currently a losing team with a losing culture.
It's
They're
a
not
core.
getting the core of the team is there's a lot of. I mean, the main core of the team probably isn't as bad as what they're playing either. It's just a mixture of everything, Bhoycie. Managers getting sacked every 3, 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah.
Just it's like Man U. You need to stick with it. Stick with it 2, 3 years and see where you go. Rangers won't do that. Fortunately, they're not patient enough. But I mean, I'm looking at Celtic and the Bhoycie, and just to stick with us just now that I don't really know if there's been a more disconnected club since I've been got to the games in terms of the fans and the board itself. But I don't think there's been a more kind of distant Celtic team for the fans either. I don't see any love for the players that we've been seeing in recent years. There's no standout players that everybody loves. You know what I mean? Kieran Tierney aside, even there's question marks, people questioning whether his inclusion is the best for where we're sitting at just now and all the rest of it. No, for me, I think he's still a class act. But I just don't know. I think there's a wee kind of there's not a very likeable Celtic team, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? There's guys in that. There's our first choice centre back, Bhoycie Scales. The fan base can't fucking stand him. They can't stand our stand-in right back. They're choking for Ralston to score an own goal, even though he's not caused one goal. He's not caused one goal in his full Celtic career. George has caused about 20. Carter Vickers has caused about 40. You know what I mean? But anyway, and we've got a fan base like myself who can't stand a striker. We can't stand Yang. We can't stand so many. I mean, you're talking
Yang starting the Champions League qualifier was that money. Forest, again, I give the pass to this right now. I think the Yang one, though, I could have told you. I remember the Ibrox game. I go back to him. It's so important with Yang. Yeah. He gave up on a goal. The Rangers winger, I think it was the Welsh lad. I think it was the Welsh lad. He scored the same goal for Rangers 3 days before. I think it was in a European game. Curled one at that far corner cut in. He does Yang, but Yang gives up. I said there and then on this channel, I mean, see when you give up in this game, you're not getting it. You'll never get it.
No.
He gave up. He's beat. Now you could twist, you could turn. You gave up. You felt sorry for yourself, and you got punished. He never had a future for me. And since then, all he's done is prove that right. He has 60-odd games with 6 goal contributions or 7 goal contributions. His 60-odd games is 1 in 10. Basically, he contributes a goal at Celtic as a winger, and he has started in these games by the manager, by the way, regardless of who else is there. Tweak it. You've got Ingles in midfield. You get Nygren to play on the right. Forrest to cut in from the left on his right foot. I'm not saying this is ideal, but there is no way Yang should be in that team ahead of someone like Arnie Ingles in Europe. Ingles started 7.
What do you think of Nygren? See Nygren as a player. What do you think of him? But see on the right against Livingston last weekend. He was diabolical, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was.
But he got the 2 goals, didn't he?
In the second half. And by the way, I've noticed that I heard the 4 times talk about it. That Nygren Bhoycie, he hides like fuck, and I've got a concern that if we play Nygren on Sunday, we're gonna be a man down straight away, Bhoycie, because he is a hider. The guy, I just watching the game, the big pitch, Bhoycie. You know, I'm talking about. You can see a bit more.
Vantage point, I think you call it.
Yes. There was points in the first half the other day. You know, when somebody moves forward, your wingers tend to they kind of move out to try and make the pitch wider and make room for the pass.
Yes,
he was stepping inwards, Bhoycie, making his angle smaller so that Celtic.
So you can't pass to him.
Aye, Bhoycie, and I was shouting every time people about me were noticing it. I was like, look at him, he's doing it every time, and I thought to myself, he's got the heart of a mouse. And then the exact same phrase was used on the 4 times the other day there. I thought, I can't be the only person that's noticing this, Bhoycie, because he is a hider. I remember his debut against St Mirren, and I came out and I said, I've never saw a player being so underwhelming at a home debut in my life than watching that guy. It was 2-yard passes and back passes. And see if I need to watch him tell me how to cheer a corner kick one more time, I'm going to jump off that fucking jock.
Well, look, there is someone else just came in saying very, very similar. My ball comes in, great to have you at the bus, my ball. And he says, Nygren, better stop with his pattern of asking the crowd for more support. I think sometimes these young fans do it to try and get the fans on side in terms of endearment. But yeah.
What it reminds me of, He reminds me of, remember that guy Rangers had, Cantwell? I think that every other support in the country can see he's a dick. I think that's what we've got. Whereas all the other fans at the other clubs are going to go, that guy's a bell end. We're not going to see it. You know what I'm talking about? I think he's got a bit of Cantwell in him where he's just a pure dauber. You know what I'm talking about? I think
I know what you mean.
He's a dauber, but we just don't see it. Well, I see it, but I'm just saying the vast
I
majority.
get you. Oh, I get you, mate. I get you. So I think when we look at the players there, I was listening to Simon Donnelly on Super Score, but it was before was it before? Was it after the game? I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I listened to Simon Donnelly talk about it anyway. It must have been after the game. It was last night. And he was saying one thing about, this is on your point about the core players like McGregor, Catterfickers, being a wee bit, in your opinion, it's a bit stale. But he said, what people don't realise about new signings is that your current crop are never offended by them. They're always excited by them. He says you need it. They bring an energy. There's one sign in your position. You're never annoyed. He says you want to do better. He goes, I'm not just saying that. He goes, you see in training when there's a new guy who's coming in who's meant to be all that. He says, who's like, fuck, we've just signed. I'm guessing he means like Andy Tom coming in. I'm guessing that's who he's referring to. Someone like, because Andy Tom came with like proper, levels. Van Hooijdonk coming in, for example, the top scorer in Holland. It just makes everyone go up. He says it improves everyone. Anyone who might be in that coasting, that comfortability, that sort of comfort zone, he said, it was like, it goes, everyone just goes back up. Everyone's more tuned in. He goes, Celtic haven't done enough. Like, you got that bounce of KT at the start of the window. That's 4 times in a pod. We've referenced him once tonight already, and Tony's a big pal of the show, as we know. He's been on here several times. But the 40 days they posted today, it's been since Celtic last signed a permanent transfer.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
213 since we lost Kyogo, Bhoycie. 213 days of inactivity. That is...
And Adam Ida about to go? Thoughts, if that was to go ahead?
Fucking please. I must admit, 5%.
But if you say that has to be replaced, though.
I've got a wee feeling. I read that article last night in Daily Record, and it's don't read the Daily Record, it's shite. Saying that Celtic will look at a striker if they sell. They mentioned Maeda, but they were talking about one of that guy. I can't remember his name, but it was the expensive one we looked at. It starts with an M, I think. He's got a funny name. But that guy, we revisit this guy if we sold and see if we can get 5-6 million on either. Then try and get this guy in for 7 or 8, Bhoycie.
From where?
Oh, Bhoycie. Remember the guy we bid 6.9 million for, and the team said, no, we want 12 or 13. Remember? Martin or something his name was? Martin. He was the kind of main one that it was like the best of the ones that we've been linked with a while ago. We put a bid in for 6.9, and the club told us to fuck off.
I know there was Celtic at Slavan.
The Strelic as well, the Strelic.
Strelic, that's it.
And another one, I think it's Martin. Somebody please help me here.
I'll tell you if someone comes in the chat. There's another one beginning with M, of course, and he's just about to join Rangers.
Miovski, no, I know him. I must admit, somebody messaged me that the other day, and I said, look, I'm not going to be two-faced. I'd be spitting feathers if Celtic's plan this window was to sign Miovski. I'd be spitting feathers. But I'm not saying they won't come in and score 20 goals for Rangers, because they might.
Oh, he will.
But we'll see.
We're not going to go for a bracket above them. This is my frustration, right? Not because you want to accept it, but if you live in the real world, like you quite often say, to be honest, live in the real world of Celtic. Celtic aren't going to get Moutinho, and I think you have been the clue striker Moutinho. Well done, you were right. I don't remember that link for some reason. But the thing is, they're not going to go for the guys at 9 million. Sadly, I wish they would. So I'm now thinking, well, if we can only go in this 2.5, 5 million bracket, I'm going, he is a no-brainer. And by the way, we need 2 strikers anyway if he does go in. We need 2 strikers anyway.
That is true.
And I think Miovski at half price, we were looking at him for 5 last year. We didn't want to pay the 6. Cool. But here's my bet. Someone says Miovski at the board right now, Rangers about saying, they go, shh, shit, who's got the bit of paper? Is he on the list? And someone's found a wee crumpled up bit of paper in the bin beside the 2019 transfer targets and went, aye, so he is. Should we make a last-minute bid? I think that one, considering I know the parameters this club operate in, considering we're haggling for a winger at Hammerby for £2.6 million, I think that's where I'm going.
I would sell either as a matter of principle, because I think that at least spells out that we won't probably shit at the club just because they cost money.
Is Lovett right here? He says either cannot handle the pressure of playing for us. I think there's an element of truth in that. And I think when he came, he had nothing to lose. He had nothing to lose in his 5 months loan, everything to gain, and he played a lot freer than he is now, Mark, as well, to be fair. And I mean, I know you were saying he was shite. He did get 20 goals. I'm not saying he had a great season by any stretch. Would I let him go, though? I'll be honest, though. My worry is I don't even know if they'll replace him. Man,
I think
they could go into this season, Maeda, Kenny, and Yamada.
Listen, I must admit, I'm no totally against Kenny within the squad.
No, either am I.
Or Yamada, I want to see him. I think he's probably, I don't know. But
I'm telling you now.
I know he's looking about like. If
it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a fucking duck.
Bhoycie, we've got to. Look, I think he does not going to. He does. If you're talking about business, he isn't going to make you money, right? He's probably not going to make you money, right? So he's probably at his highest.
4 to 5 you'll get from.
Much, I think so. And I think that was what, I think that was what he's worth peak.
It always was this. It's that great board that
anybody that suggests that Rogers won't get the money. I seen Chris Boyd saying this the other day. He's totally missing the point. That Rogers won't get the money because he spent that money on his own him, Engels, and Trusty. No. They free cost that amount of money. Maybe not Trusty aside, because £6 million probably does buy you that. But they, Engels and Ida, they cost the money they cost because Celtic dragged it on and became that desperate that they had to pay the money. They just had to pay the money. So that's Celtic's fault that these guys broke records, because in any other window, these guys are £4 or £5 million, and they're proving it because the biggest games of the season, you'll probably find that not one of them is going to start. None of them is going to start. You know what I mean? And you're talking about a squad now that's really poor. It's the poorest squad I've seen. And by the way, Rod Isler's team was far better. Van Dijk, Chris Commons, Stefan Johansson, Kieran Tierney, Izaguirre, who's the big keeper at the time? Wasn't Fraser Foster? But we had a fucking Stokes, Lee Griffiths. That is a far better squad than this squad, right? I think the squad we've got just now is as bad as anything you've seen maybe pre-1994. That's how bad the squad is. If you've been totally honest with yourself, there's no a standout player in that team. Kieran Tierney on their side, I think he will prove himself, but Johnson, I think, is overrated. Carter Vickers, of 2 years ago, unplayable. Now he's coasting. Midfield, no point even getting into that midfield because it's a mess. And the front three, or whatever, the front six, if you put them on a hat, not one of them deserve a Celtic jersey, boys. Not one of them. Jota, you can put aside because he's injured all the time, but there's no standout players there. There's no players that you wouldn't walk into a kid's bedroom and they'll got all their photographs up on the wall now, because they're all just has.
I think Jota will have that when he comes back. I think
Jota and Kieran will solve that left hand side. But as if I don't think, by the way, I don't think Maeda and Kieran Tierney worked. I told you that last season, boys. I said Maeda hug the touchline, Kieran Tierney wants to hug the touchline. This isn't Craig Taylor and Verton. This is two players that want to go wide. The exact same thing happened to Scott Sinclair. Rogers pushed Sinclair one in to accommodate for Kieran Tierney. Scott Sinclair lasted 2 months in the next season and he was dropped. I mean, and that's what happens. When you start accommodating players who are playing well for other players, one of the two is going to suffer. One of the two is going to suffer. The same way with Alan Thompson and Ed McGeady. Alan Thompson got pushed in one, he accommodated McGeady. Alan Thompson fell off a cliff.
I remember that.
This is what happens, boys. This is what happens.
Has Maeda got a right to demand the number 9 jersey now?
No, I don't think he's got a right to demand a start.
Is that harsh though, based on a 35 goal season And yes, there's been a
Bhoycie,
couple of clear misses. Is that just the reality of being a Celtic number 9 of what we're looking for?
Well, we're in August now, right? So we can look at the bigger picture. I think since mid-January, I think he missed a chance to win his Ibrox, missed a one-on-one, fell his
Scottish Cup final.
Scottish Cup final.
Both legs of the playoff.
In playoff,
Both legs.
I think he costs us as much as one person can cost us. He costs us that. You know what I mean? And that's, I'm not sure I discount what he did before. Me and you were talking about form. We're talking about form.
Yeah, this is a form conversation. 100%.
The things are grenade and goes like, oh, they two want him to be deported and put into the Japanese prisoner war camp. We don't. I'm just saying, like, genuinely, the form. And by the way, the exact same counts for Kasper Schmeichel. I think he's got the arse the size of a shopping trolley. He needs drop, Bhoycie. I think Sinisalo did nothing wrong for me. Nothing wrong at all. I think the penalty kicks. I thought
Kasper Schmeichel hasn't conceded a goal this season.
Bhoycie, he's been out of the camp. He's been out of the camp. His kicking has been terrible this season.
Yeah, his distribution I've noticed as well.
And Bhoycie,
I do agree with that.
Can I ask you a genuine question here? How many shots has he come up against? Because it's been Livingston at home, right? Who didn't have a shot at goal. St Mirren, to be fair to him, who played well but didn't really have a shot at goal. Falkirk, it was dropped for, and then all went with Aberdeen away. And there was nothing to defend that either. I think the penalty kicks, I think two of them would dive too early. Even that one with the guy tried to Panenka, he dived in before the guy even kicked the ball. He was just like, on you go. No wonder the guy Panenka him. You know, I think, Bhoycie, both things can be true at the same time. You can thank a player for being good, respect what he's done, and keep him in the squad, but also at the same time realise that there's probably a fresher, hungrier, fitter guy who's ready to step in. I think Sinisalo's keys is that. If he comes in and doesn't live up to the jersey, we've got a cracking, amazing backup at Schmeichel. I just think he needs to get Bhoycie. His arse is fucking hanging out his shorts. He doesn't look fitter than what he did last year. He just looks like he's got a beer belly. He looks.
I suggested he looked overweight last year, if you remember.
Bhoycie, it's Celtic Football Club. See if you look fat in a tracksuit, you need to go to the gym, right? But if you look fat in a tracksuit as a football player, there's fucking something wrong, Bhoycie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think there's question marks for the strikers, right and left wingers, question marks for the keeper, question marks for the midfield three, including their captain. And nobody wants to talk about it.
Yep.
Let's talk about the board. Let's talk about how shit Rangers are. Let's talk about the coefficient. The fact of the matter is we're causing our own downfall. The players we've got to know, we're not getting the best out of them. Never mind, what can we bring in to complement that? And that's
Mark,
been missed.
What changes between now and the close of the window? Because clearly recruitment's a thing we've got an issue with. What's the attitude going to be like, depending on how you see it playing out, going to be? So I'll give you my take. I think Celtic will get the Ballotwisher one over the line. I think they've had to go to Belgium and convince him. I think they've overpaid. They're going to overpay not overpay. I think they'll be paying the going rate for his wages, but in their mind, overpay what they wanted to. And I think he'll be someone who probably we've highlighted in 6 months' time as someone who, had he been there, could have made X amount of difference to qualifying for the Champions League. And I think Celtic will now pay more in wages for him than they were going to had they been bold in their approach. And this, by the way, is a guy not in that famed ballpark of 6 to 9 million. This is a guy 4.5 to 5 million. It's chump change for a club like us. It's money we spent 30 years ago on players. On Alan Stubbs is £4.5 million. I always use that one because I just think it's hilarious. There's my buzzer going. I've got no idea who that could be. Give us 2 seconds, Mark. Just what's your thoughts on the window? If you could just tell everyone 2 seconds.
Well, first of all, the window's been absolutely fucking atrocious so far. But after the night and the weekend, I think we've got to improve every position. I think we need 2 wingers. I think we need a left back cover and a striker. I don't think that will happen. I think we'll get a striker in. I'm pretty convinced we'll get somebody in, but of what standard, I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to be another project striker or an actual striker that's got to come in and be the number 1 choice. But I think we will get another striker in. I think Bhoycie was signed on Tuesday. Yeah, it was seemingly he was in London on Monday, and so was that other boy Sirachi. There's a photograph of Sirachi in an airport. I think it was Tuesday morning. So these guys are already here. Celtic are just choosing when they want to unveil them. The usual Celtic shite.
But not in time for the Champions League playoff deadline.
Oh, of course.
What's the excuse for either of those not being in?
Well, even if you want to just give the board a wee scintilla a credit and say Balikwisha was hard to get, Sirachi wasn't hard to get, Bhoycie. The guy, the window we're shopping, the aisle we're shopping in, Bhoycie, are guys that are probably low hanging fruit, easy to get. So I don't understand why we're waiting to the stage where anybody we get in isn't going to be fit for Ibrox. If we get a striker, see, people spoke about Vardy there. Vardy would probably be about 4 weeks away minimum to get a Celtic start. That's too late for the Champions League. Well, evidently it is. Too late for Ibrox. And we could have had Tynecastle in the Scottish Cup against rather than Falkirk. We could have had Ibrox in the Scottish Cup. But that wouldn't have changed the focus, Bhoycie. It'll made me and you sit up and notice and try to, progress the Celtic's pace in the transfer window. But it wouldn't have changed the board's strategy. I say strategy. This wait and see attitude isn't a strategy. I say it every season, Bhoycie. If your plan is to hope Rangers make an asset, then that isn't a plan, Bhoycie. And that seems to be Celtic's philosophy. They'll fuck up earlier, but there's only so many times you can throw darts at a dartboard before one of them hit. And they will get one window correct, the Huns. They will get a striker, they will get a midfielder, and they will get a playmaker. They'll get it all one window. And they might just coincide that with a manager that's got a clue what he's fucking doing. And then Celtic will turn around like they did during COVID, wait far too late to act, and wait far too late to get the recruitment in when they needed it. And you know something? We've already got an owner and a board who they do things to spite the fans. Look at that social media page, Bhoycie, that Celtic Twitter page. That is elite levels of goading, elite levels of annoying the fan base. If I know somebody we know works for them, but if you're sitting there as a Celtic fan, knowing fine well you're sending happy birthday messages to Rudy Vata, knowing that 50,000 Celtic fans are going to be fucking flinging their phones out a window, you're sitting back. You must know for a fact that's going to cause Twitter to go.
What was the one? The one a few weeks ago that annoyed me was the news you've all been waiting for. ... And it's what's Luke McCowan's favourite chocolate.
Bhoycie, that is
trolling, mate.
I was spinning in my chair. That's trolling. I think it's people use the word passive aggressive.
People don't get that.
But see, the thing is, I can be passive aggressive towards you in this podcast, but then I can see your reaction and I'll get a satisfaction at it. They're doing it to a wave of people and just sitting back, knowing folk are going to be fucking livid. They can't even see it, but they're still loving it, Bhoycie. Do you know what I mean? They're either that distant from the reality of how Celtic fans are feeling, or they don't care, or even worse, they do care and they're doing it to annoy you.
This is the angle that frustrated me. There was a reply I was getting, or a couple of replies going, because the Celtic social media team are out to do Peter Lowell's bidding. It doesn't work like that. They're just putting, but they're saying they're just posting what's scheduled to be posted. They're scheduled posts. And again, I go back to it and go, but see when everything's a sum of moving parts, and you're on the back of whatever it was at that time, the amount of rage about lack of signings. I mean, you wouldn't go with that scheduled headline for the episode trailer. You wouldn't go with whatever the question everyone's wanted or the answer on the.
During your writing headlines, Bhoycie, Jink Lowell and Nicholson saying, "I want you to write this headline."
No, but whatever was scheduled though, or if it was scheduled, I mean, either way, there has to be oversight on this. There has to be someone then who phones and goes, "That's bad taste right now."
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is when it happens time and time again, is the fact that it's okay. So either, and this is my biggest other worry, is nobody gives a fuck. When you see about Celtic players that have done nothing wrong for Celtic in the sense of giving their all, like Stephen Welsh, he sees loan moves falling through because Celtic don't get back in touch. When you see it with the goalkeeper,
the keeper you're talking about, messing with these guys.
Yeah, but it turns out it's like just sleeping at the phone, just And I think Celtic have done that with the recruitment. I honestly don't think there's anyone proactive in there shaking trees, mate. And when there is someone in there who might look like they're going to shake a tree, you'll be out in a second. Mark, we've ran to an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to call it there. I can't thank you enough for all your views tonight. And I know a lot of them have rang true because we've consistently held an audience tonight, Mark, of way over 200. Literally for the whole show. So a massive shout out, as much as I say thanks to Matt, a massive thanks to all you in the chat, because that is what makes an episode brilliant, is when we get that many contributions. I have now started, if you look just down there to your bottom right, posting every comment, so other viewers will be able to now start seeing every single channel, every single comment on the channel. And then the ones that I bring up are obviously ones that we are maybe looking to have a wee deeper dive into, if at all possible. But like I say, a huge thanks to everyone who's watched. This is the place you come for the home truths, and it always has been thus. It's a shame that sometimes it can come across as negativity to some. We base ourselves on realism. We don't have any favours to gather from anyone, whether it be the MSM, whether it be club channels, or the fan media pressers, or any of that bollocks. We do not care.
Yeah, advertisers to appease for Bhoycie.
To appease for one
question I want to say to you. One thing I want to say to you, and we don't need to talk about it, right? Because we're about to go. You've got a derby match at Ibrox, the first of the season, and we haven't even mentioned it. That is how consuming this transfer window has overshadowed every kick of the ball this season. Even we're more angry at the fact that the board let us get knocked out of the Champions League than we are about getting knocked out of the Champions League. And that is some magic trick. Can you imagine telling somebody who's not living in Glasgow or in the bubble that you've got a club that's won 13 out of 14 titles, so many trebles, £80 million in the bank, and their fan base is livid? They'd be like, why are they so angry? But see, once you climb on that bubble, boy, so you can know exactly why the fans are livid. We're getting treated like arseholes. The police are and the stewards are over-policed us in the stadium, and you've got a board that don't want to listen. And unfortunately, we've got a fan base, a very large section of that, who are condoning every single bit of that behaviour. And shame on you.
So true. It's so true. Mark, this is why the T.N.F is what it is, because of your absolute direct, honest as ever answers. And with certainly what always people find interesting listening to someone speaking their truths, and that is definitely what we get from you. We don't know any other way on the T.N.F. But thanks again, anyway, for everyone who's jumped on, and we get through as many comments as we can. There is a lot that fly in. I'm going to be back on tomorrow with Mick. Mick was on with us a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of positive feedback on that. Matt, if you are free, I know you've got a busy life, but they'll always.
What's the time you on it?
I don't know. We can arrange it. I don't have a set time as yet, but the door's always open.
Don't count me out, Bhoycie.
There you go, mate. There's a teaser. There's a teaser for you. But yeah, I could go early evening as always on a Friday, no problem. But yes, we'll look into all that. But you will see us back on the bus tomorrow. The very bare minimum will be me and Mick, but the judge might be on there as well. There's a wee teaser for you from Oilers on the Bus. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Take it easy. See you later.